New episodes of Tour Talk go live every Monday, so please subscribe, comment, and like if you enjoy what you hear, and help us spread the word by continuing to share this with anyone you think will enjoy. This is Tour Talk.
Wearing black hoodies.
I know. We're style icons. What can I say?
I love it.
We're leading the trend in this new color, black. It's really in this season.
It's in for people in the music industry to wear black. We're setting the trend.
This is what we do. I do have a topic for today, but I thought it would be nice to congratulate you on finally being able to put out the news that you have indeed signed with a record label. I mean,
thank you.
I think it'd be really cool to do an episode on that whole period at some point. But do you want to
process of what it's like?
Yeah, I think that would be a great insight for people because I mean, it's been a year, really. I mean,
it's been since in 1 month from February 29th. Okay, so on the 29th of February or the 28th, it will be 1 year since my first solo gig in the States and Paul coming to see me, which started the whole process.
I remember you called me in December 2019 because I was at a show and you were like, I've got this idea. I think I'm going to do this thing. And now it's 15 months later or something, so here we are. So do you want to kind of give me a little insight into that, how it actually feels for you to have that news out there and like kind of where you're at with everything? Do you want to give us like a little 5-minute overview of
Sure.
what that's been like?
I think the process is, I know this sounds weird. It might sound strange to some people, especially if you're in the earlier part of your career or you're kind of just starting. It feels very normal to me, right? Because I've been doing it for so long that your career is just a series of these processes, right? Like it's a series of preparing for tours. It's a series of management meetings. It's a series of dealing with trying to put music out, right? It's like it always cycles. It's every year, every 2 years, you're constantly going back over that process. So I guess the thing that feels the most exciting about it or the most alien, the strangest part about it is that I'm doing it. I mean, alone is not completely accurate because I have you're involved in the process. Paul Clegg, my manager, is involved in the process. My booking agents are involved in the process. My label's involved in the process. Velocity, but all the final decisions are down to me, and that's the first time in 18 years where I don't have to wait or consult or meld my mind with another person who's making the music.
Yep.
I mean, essentially, I make all the decisions. So it's been weirdly normal, and I think if you think it's abnormal completely, then you're doing something like it should feel normal if you believe in the thing that you're doing. I think so.
Cool. Okay, and what about actually? Because you've sat on information for a long time, and I know that you are possibly one of the most impatient people I've ever known.
Yeah.
So, to finally be able to kind of talk about it, or to just to say it's done, like I can move on from thinking about this now, and I can look at all the things that follow. Finally, announcing that I'm working with a label and everything else. I mean, will like that change of mentality for you now that that's finally?
Yeah, it feels really, it's like a relief, you know? It's a relief now I can talk about it and say, listen, this year definitively I will have a record that comes out. Or to say, all right, in my brain now I'm already thinking about the next thing. That's very important for me the way my mind works is I'm always looking for the next thing. I get bored very easily. So now that this is compartmentalized, we can talk about it in like the past tense almost. Like those songs are recorded and done and they will come out this year. All right, now it's up to the label and the management to worry about it, and now I'm gonna write more songs, and so next year at this time we're talking about the next set of things, so
it's really cool.
I feel great, and actually, it's funny because I guess if people are listening to this podcast, I don't know that they will, or I hope they do, but if they are listening to it, these type of conversations that you hear Dario and I have are the same conversations that we have on the phone regularly about, but pertaining to the music that I'm making, or the tour that we're trying to prepare for, or these. It's just a little insight. This is what you're hearing now is just exactly what.
Yeah.
You'd be like, hey, how do you feel now that we made the announcement? I'd be like, all right, I think these things are what we should, I got to focus on this next.
Yeah.
And then back and forth for 25 minutes.
I mean, essentially, I know all these things are going on, like, whirring around your head all the time, and I'm just trying to be nice and let you kind of get a bit of that out and make some sense of it.
Yeah,
it's basically what I do for
You're an emotional punching bag.
It's taking its toll, man. It's taking its toll.
I know. You look older today for some reason.
I feel good, though. I feel good.
You feel good, but you look old.
I'm good, man.
I'm just saying that. You look you look youthful. Youthful as ever.
All right, so I don't think people really probably know how these episodes like kind of come about, but essentially you know nothing about what we're going to talk about.
This is like a lottery. You do a lot of thinking and research and take your time, and you're very thoughtful, and you have a clear idea of what you want to do going into the show. And I basically show up.
Yeah, and react. I mean, you may be overselling what I do, but at some point during the week I'll be like, oh, that's a cool thought. Maybe we would chat about that normally, so why don't we have a conversation about that today?
Correct.
And then we wing it from there on in. So hopefully today's topic is cool. People get something out of it. We have some fun doing it, and that's pretty much the whole process. So
it's great.
I was getting quite wistful about shows and everything else, and I was curious to know your most memorable shows as, one, a performer, and two, as a punter, as someone who's been there.
This is a good one. This is good.
Yeah. So I'm going to start with my one, one of my ones, and then we will go from there, because I know that this is a band that you've toured with. So when I was at school, I basically hung around with a load of kids that were way cooler than me and had much better taste in music, and I would be at house parties and they'd play bands, and then eventually we would go and see them, and it was great. So somebody played me like an Oz and Matley CD, and I was like, that sounds really cool. I don't know what that is. That's something that I would never usually listen to.
Yes.
And we went to see, I must have been about 16. We went to an Oz and Matley show in Newcastle in the basement of the university, which was like the place to go and see club shows in Newcastle at that time. There was the two universities, and the Newcastle University one was, I don't want to say nicer, but like better set up for shows. I mean, it was low ceiling and sweat would drip down and all the rest of it. But I went in to see Oz and Matley, not really knowing what to expect.
Boom.
And it was quite possibly the best party gig I have ever been to.
And it's not bullshit. It's 100% accurate, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many times they will do those bits or the stuff to go with it, or the chant, but like I've only seen them once, and this is 15 years ago. But I still remember that they would say Ozo and I would say Matley, and that's what we did. And then they all came down off stage and they ran a conga line through the room, and then everybody sat down in the middle of the room. And for me, like, I've been to a few shows, mainly rock bands, and they were great, and you rocked out and you got everything out, and that was really cool. But just to go and have a party for like 90 minutes, that was... That has always stuck with me. I went to see loads of shows in that building. That's the one out of all of them, like from being a kid. I was like, man, they've just gave everybody the best night of their week, month, year, maybe. That's what I love about this. This is kind of, I would like to be involved in this somehow. So obviously I know you toured with them, and we actually haven't really spoke about that. But
yeah, I don't think we've ever really had this conversation. Maybe we like briefly brushed over it, but I kind of don't remember ever talking about it.
No, and I just thought,
crazy.
Now's the time.
Okay, so that's wild. I would put them on the list of both best, one of the most memorable shows playing and watching. Mm-hmm. they're one of the few bands that I've toured with where like I don't want to miss the set, right?
Sure.
Like I want to see what they're gonna do.
Yep.
We also, it was really crazy. Okay, so it was like I think it was 2010, and Charlie Tuna, the rapper, used to go on tour with them. I don't know if he was at the show in England, but he was an unofficial kind of part of the group. But he's also like a very prominent solo hip hop artist.
Yeah.
So this was the first tour back of Charlie Tuna coming back to the group. So the buzz for the shows was crazy. And I'll never forget playing with them at the Boston House of Blues, which holds 3,500 people. It's huge. It was sold out. And during our set, Charlie Tuna came out and was like, we had talked about it, but we hadn't really coordinated it.
Okay.
And Charlie Tuna's like at the side of the stage, and I was like, hey, come out. Like, we had talked about just going into an instrumental and him rapping.
Right, okay.
And he just did it. And the crowd went the crowd wasn't 100% loving us. They were like kind of on the fence. They were like, this is weird. Like, this is not.
So which version of Lion Eyes is like touring with Ozomatli? Like, what stage of like rock or
this is like right on the cusp of us going way more in a rock direction. But there was still a lot of reggae and weird dance hall influence. So the set was good, but he came out and made it great, and it was just crazy. And then I remember at some point, me and Chris, who played keys in Lion Eyes, we jammed with them during their set. They asked us to come up, and it was it was just crazy. And Hank, actually, the bass player, Will Dog, just like on a whim, this is all coming back to me now as we're talking about it. He just hands Hank the bass in the middle of a song.
Song or jam or
a jam, and Hank just without a hesitation,
handsome monster. Yeah,
and it was one of these nights where I was like, this is never gonna. It's okay, I'll keep going. So I was like, this is never gonna be repeated. I mean, and then through the tour, it was really interesting. The shows were incredible. They were so gracious to us. And a couple things I remember from touring with Ozomatli. And we can move on, but this is just like flooding my brain.
But this is the best thing about picking random shit and just going for it. Because
so those guys were mostly sober, but two guys in the band still smoked weed, but it was completely sober otherwise. And of course, that meant our dressing room was the place that those guys could smoke weed. But after the show, it was one of those really cool experiences. After that set in Boston, when normally bands would be like, let's go out and get fucked up, it was like, it kind of wasn't that vibe, which is great. I think you need that vibe every once in a while to make it like completely grounded. We went bowling with them.
Oh, that's amazing.
On that block where the House of Blues is, which is right by, the baseball stadium. And we went bowling with them, and we were literally just drinking soda.
Yeah.
And eating like mozzarella sticks and, chicken wings or whatever, and bowling with them till their bus call at 4 a.m. Second thing I will never forget about those guys is that shows were sold out everywhere. They were packed. They had a tour manager, and they had a merch person.
Wow, no crew.
And their sound guy was their tour manager.
Okay.
And they set their own shit up, they broke their own shit down, and they were on a tour bus. Do you know what I'm saying? It wasn't like they could have easily.
When you sell 3,500 tickets, you can afford a crew.
But they just said, didn't fuck it. They were just like the most down to earth, real ass musicians. And that's the thing. The drummer was the drummer from the Wallflowers at that point. And Uli, who is he's a horn player for them, sax and stuff. I still keep in touch with him today. I've hung out with him a few times in California, and they were just the most gracious. They were the coolest dudes, man. I don't know how else to describe it. They were just like, and they came and played a big event at the Kennedy Center, a big Latin music event. Mm-hmm. And I get a text, and Uli's like, "Hey, this is like maybe 5-6 years ago." And Uli was like, "Hey, I'm in town. You want tickets? Like, you want to come hang out?" And I was like,
"Wow,
yeah." And that's just kind of guys they are. So that was a really enlightening experience to tour with them and view them from the stage and from the audience. And they did a thing. Last thing about Ozomatli was the most brilliant thing I've ever seen is, and I'm sure you remember this because I think this was the thing we talked about. At the end of the night, they start a conga line, and they go through the crowd. The crowd joins it, and the conga line ends at the merch booth. And then they sell more merch than you've ever fucking seen in your entire life.
Yep. It's genius.
Yeah. And it was just like, their crowd was so... it was the most diverse crowd I've ever seen at a show. It was white, black, Asian, Spanish. It was a reflection of the band itself.
Yeah. And they just bring a good time. I think like that's what so many bands forget is that you're there to bring people a good time. Like that's why they're there. They want to go and party and forget everything else for a couple of hours and just kind of get lost in it. And they are an amazing exponent of that for sure.
Amazing. Yeah. I that's a tour I will never ever forget. I mean, that just like brings back such good memories.
Have to do it again.
Yeah, I would love to play with those guys again. I don't know the last time they were over in Europe, but I'll text Uli when the time's right.
Happy days. You want to give me, because I know we've spoken about a couple of like memorable Lion Eyes shows and stuff like Red Rocks and all the rest of it. Have you got another that really kind of sticks out, maybe for different reasons, or
one? Yeah, there's a few. There's a few. I think the band I've toured with the most ever is Clutch.
Yeah.
And we played a show with them one time in the Commodore Ballroom in Vancouver. And that show will just stick out to me. Whatever came together that night, it was one of the craziest reactions I've ever seen between a crowd and a band. I mean, just
one feeding the other.
It just got to a point where it was like palpable, like you felt the tension in the room because the set was so good and the crowd was so ready for it. It was just it was like tangible, like it was almost uncomfortable, if that makes sense. You're like, where does it go? And then it goes up, and you're like, oh, where does it go? And it was just, I don't know. It was I remember everyone just being exhausted after it.
Oh
just
wow!
Being like, wow, yeah, it was just like, And the weed's really good there, so who knows where that went. But that sticks out of my mind. Playing a Lion Eyes show at a place called Los Almaros Festival in Volos, Greece. And it's a festival in the middle of a forest in Greece, about, I don't think, it might be 6 hours from Athens. I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
And it's a homegrown DIY festival. And the festival doesn't start till the sun goes down.
Oh,
and
amazing.
We were on stage right before the headliner, and it was like 2 a.m.
I think this is
like
a thing
that was our time slot.
Yeah, like obviously this is they do festivals different in Europe to the States completely. Like this is those from the States who are listening, like this stuff does not start till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, and will go on till the sun comes up, basically.
It was so crazy. It was just one of those things where, and it was very DIY, you know what I mean? It wasn't like prim and proper. It was like people were camping. Mm-hmm. Everyone there camps out. There's no hotels.
Yeah. We
got a hotel room, but there's one hotel in the town. That's where all the artists were staying. Mm-hmm. We went on right before this band called the Villagers of Ionian City, VIC. And they mix heavy metal, like doom rock, with traditional Greek music.
Okay, Ionian, so they're singing in Greek too.
It was mostly instrumental from what I remember.
Okay.
But it was crazy, right? So we were going on before them. It's hard to explain. There's a photo. I could find it somewhere. I'll try to find it for Rob. But sound check was at 3 or 4 p.m. And we were there, we were in this setting, and, there's a lot to drink. And
so that's the point. Like, responsibly, you would go back to the hotel and sleep for a couple of hours, then go do your 10 p.m., 11 p.m.
No, dude. We stayed there and drank, and it's hard to describe. There was no like backstage. There's no security. There was like a couple It's in the middle of a forest, and the stage is right where this clearing is. And I remember almost you can't see how big the crowd is, right?
Okay.
So we go on stage, and I'll never forget. This show was maybe the best show I've ever been a part of. The stage is super high up. It's maybe 10 feet. And they keep saying the tickets are beyond capacity, they can't get more people in this area, but we keep seeing cars coming in, and I mean it looks like a college party in the middle of a field. I can't describe it, but there's a stage, and there's all of a sudden the stage lights go completely dark, and we get on, and we're kind of testing our gear and getting ready to go. And I said in Greek, to the crowd, "Hey, we're Lion-Eyes, we're from America, thank you so much for having us tonight."
Can you do it in Greek now?
Hold on.
You got this.
I would say Kalispera los Amoros, Ime Nathan, Imaste Lion-Eyes. We're very happy to be here. And someone in the front of the crowd, I can't see how big the audience is, takes a fucking flare, a straight up like emergency flare, a big one, and lights it. And as he does that, the fucking crowd erupts. It's 8,000 people. I mean, I can't describe it anymore. It was, then the stage lights go up, and it hits the audience, and you can't see where it ends, because they're in. You see where they are in front of you in the straight line, and then they're in the forest. They're in these trees, and it just goes into pitch black. And it was one of those moments where I was like, "Fuck! Like I get paid to do this. Yeah, this is crazy." And the crowd went nuts, and then more people started lighting flares. So all you can see is a sea of people and flares, and people screaming, and people getting up on top of the barricade and holding flares up.
Yeah, it's amazing.
To the point where the smoke from the flares were choking us on stage. Yeah. It was so crazy.
But you loved it, yeah? Like the flares and the smoke and the...
Yeah. I'm sure I've said it on here before. I'll say it again. I love playing in Europe and UK. UK fans are amazing. German fans are amazing. There are no fans in the world like Greek rock and roll fans. Period.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, but we will go back to flares, and then I will challenge that statement because I've got a flare thing too. So we'll go back. But how did you get booked for a show like that? Because DIY festival in the middle of a forest in Greece.
They knew us from having toured Europe with Clutch, and we had people that knew us in Greece before we ever even played there.
Wow.
And then we became, because of Clutch, and then we did that tour, the Lords of the Rift tour in the UK in 2013 with Planet of Zeus. And having done that, they introduced us to Greece. They brought us over to play with them. Yeah. And then from that, it all started. So we got the invite to do the festival, and now it's 16,000 people. It's bananas.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
I will never experience. I would imagine it would be very hard to experience something like that again.
Because you just didn't see it coming. Like, it's one of those things, the setup and everything. Like, you can't picture when you eventually see what's actually going on. Yeah, it's way bigger than you could ever have even dreamed of, really.
Right, and there was no catering. There was this. I'm not making this up. There were three things.
And back to food. I'm glad we've got
hot dogs. Hot dogs.
Tick.
Beer.
Tick.
And a Greek liquor called Tsiporo, which is literally just lightning in a bottle. Just not, so this...
Which is crazy, because Greek food's amazing. Like, grilled...
Right, but we're in the middle of nowhere. It's not... It's like there was no infrastructure for
no
real
barbecues,
meals.
no nothing. Like
hot dogs boiled in water on fresh Greek bread with Cipro and beer, and we got. Put it this way, we didn't get back to the hotel until 8 a.m. 9 a.m.
That's the dream.
That's the dream. That was a rough next day too, boy. Woo, dog.
Travel day next day, or
yeah.
No, thank you. So,
it was travel day.
So I went to South America with Anthrax. And we go to Santiago to do a show in Chile. We go to Chile to do a show in Santiago, either way around. And in the build up to it, like the guys who've been there before, and the tour manager, are like, this is basically what happened last time. They showed me this video of the crowd going absolutely nuts, running around in a circle pit with flares.
Yes.
And being like, this is what to expect tomorrow. Like, there's obviously massive safety implications to having live flares in like indoor buildings and stuff. We need to be prepared for if a flare gets set off during the show or whatever. So we're all very wary of it. Show time comes round, intro music comes on, so I walk the band to stage because that was part of my job with Anthrax as their band assistant. And I'm stood at the back of the stage just as the band are about to hit the first chord of Among the Living, I think it was, and this flare goes off in the middle of the crowd.
Right.
Like, so there's like 3,000 people or something in this like club, like theater kind of venue in Santiago. And then, so obviously on the radio we discussed it that there would be a show stop if this thing happened, and I'd never had to pull a show stop for the band before, or a band of that size, really.
Right.
So I got to try and go to Scott Ian and be like, we need to stop the show, and they're like, no, this is amazing. Yeah. We're gonna rock this. Like, no, you guys sort it out.
You don't stop the show. No way. Yeah.
And the place just erupted. Like, they kicked into Among the Living, and the place went off. At which point, I've got to go run to front of house from the backstage, the tour manager, whilst the promoter's rep was running into the crowd to try and get the flare off the guy, whilst the band are rocking out and having an amazing time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it was like, whilst I was running through the concourse, like, people were getting dragged out and people were on stretchers. It was like, that's what those shows are like there. I mean, they're incredible. I mean, I'm sure the shows in Greece are of a similar nature, but in South America, like, people are there to let it all out. Like, they will go... Right. I mean, because they've been waiting for this band for months, years, whatever, because... especially with the nature of how stuff is in a lot of these cities in South America, like, this is what they kind of cling on to, and they're waiting for their favorite band to come
It sounds exactly like Greece. I mean, I can't wait to play in South America on that note. I mean, I can't wait to do it.
At the same show, guys jump, because in all the old Anthrax videos, you see people get on stage and stage dive, like with the band, which was great back in the day. But ever since Dimebag got shot, who was a really good friend of the band's, like, bands are obviously really nervous of people getting on stage or near the stage that shouldn't be there.
Correct.
So obviously now there's lots of security involved, and there's security in the pit and everything, but sometimes the message doesn't quite get translated. And a couple of guys managed to get on stage, and they were stage diving, which you kind of have to not roll with. I mean, then at that point I had to get in the pit at the front and try and like cajole security to make sure that people weren't getting up on stage. But it's by far one of the best gigs I've ever been to. Like,
it's crazy
to see a crowd like that and a band feed off a crowd like that was mega. I mean, I've seen that Anthrax show a lot of times, like having worked with them for a couple of years, and that was standout. That was absolutely mega.
That's insane.
I hope you get to experience something like that at some point.
I'm ready to.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the show I described is probably the pinnacle for me. Mm-hmm. Playing, and then I can easily say that watching Rush on their last tour play the Bell Center in Montreal was by far one of the best live shows. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything even come close.
So, Dom, our mutual friend, his girlfriend, well now wife, bought him Rush tickets for his birthday.
Yeah.
But she was like, take somebody else. I don't want to go. And it was from when they played 2112 in full.
It's so insane.
They played for like 3.5 hours. They took like a little break in the middle, but flawless. The whole thing was absolutely flawless from start to finish.
It's just, I couldn't describe it any other way aside from that's why they have millions of fans all over the world. I mean, it was just a flawless show. The lights, the sound, their performance, the lasers. It was just, I've never looked out in an audience and seen 9 out of 10 people were playing an air instrument. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's playing the drum fills. So many people are just on the bass.
And they're right. They know those pards. Like, their timing's incredible. It is,
yeah. It is the nerdiest thing of all time.
Yeah.
And it was delightful. It was pure joy. Yeah, I mean, I think those are the most standout things, you know. I've seen a lot of things in a more intimate level too. I got to see Dr. John do his New Orleans jazz blues thing, soul thing in front of about 300 people in DC at a small venue. I mean, I got to see ZZ Top at the 930 Club in front of 1,000 people, which is so crazy.
So I think what a lot of us feel is that you would much rather see a big band in a small room.
Question.
There's something a lot more magical about seeing a big band or a band on their way up before they get big in a room of like 800 or 1,000 people.
No question.
Do you want to try and explain that to people? Like, why?
I think 3,000 or 4,000 is kind of where it. I mean, maybe 5,000 is the cap of where it no longer feels like everyone's in the same room. You know, like Brixton Academy is probably the peak venue for feeling like you're part of a very intimate thing.
Brixton's a great shout for that because it's just got that one massive angled floor space and
Roundhouse. You know, the Roundhouse, same thing. Yeah. It feels like it's 3,000 people, but you feel like you're part of this very small thing. You could see from everywhere, you can hear it from everywhere, but it's a lot of people, but not so many that you feel lost at the back of the room. There's something about seeing a band that can control a crowd of that size. It's magical. Mm-hmm. But you could still hear their instruments on stage.
Yeah.
When you're in a really small club, let's say it's 100 to 500. So from like the Black Heart in London to the middle room in Manchester at the Academy, the university. Those kind of shows, you can like smell the band, or you know, like there's no escaping.
Yeah,
you know,
there's
it's as loud. Distance. It's as loud in the back of the room as it is in the front of the room.
Yeah.
So that's just special because I think you can feel the band's energy directly. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense, like you could feel the group of people on stage, their energy touches you directly because it's so small.
Sure.
And then when you're in the 3,000 cap room or 5,000 cap room or 1,000 cap room, you're feeling the people's energy around you too. It's all kind of combined. But then I think when you get to an arena or a stadium, it's just a little more diluted. I don't think it's worse. It's just different.
Sure. For me, I totally understand because there's a lot of places you can stand in an arena where you can just watch comfortably and you're not quite part of it, but it feels like there's a lot of distance, but you can enjoy the show and it's fine. You can go all the way up front. I mean, I remember like being 16, being at an Iron Maiden gig and being at the front row and rocking out with these guys who were like 50 and just as into it as me and like going for it way harder than I ever could. Yeah. And you can get that vibe from being in a stadium or an arena, but you've got to commit. You've got to you've got to fight your way to the front, be a part of it, and fight to stay there because it's hard work being at the front of one of those shows.
Exactly.
Whereas in those smaller rooms, I feel like that energy is just from back to front. And
it
you're
fills
this
the
close
whole
to the
room.
Band. Yeah, and you're this close to the band. Like, you can see them sweat. You can see, you can see the whole thing. So I get that. Imagine
if they filled... It would be like if the energy and sound was water, right? Mm-hmm. If you're in a small club, that water goes to about 6 inches to the ceiling, so you're like gasping for air. But when you're in a stadium, it's just more spread out.
Yep.
It's like it's still there, but you're not scared for your life.
Well, no, and I think that's a really cool thing because, like, for me anyway, that little element of danger of being in a show is 100%. Kind of what it's about. I mean, one of the first gig I ever went to, I can't remember whether it was on my own or whether I went with friends, but I was 14 and I went to see Fear Factory, and it was in the same room as I saw Ozomatli a couple of years later.
Wow.
And it was when they just put Digimortal out, and the lead single was Lynchpin, and I mean, they were an industrial metal band, and it was heavy as fuck. It was amazing, but
dirty, yeah.
I was like 14. I went in, like, I got a beer, I met a girl, I crowd surfed to Lynchpin, like, and you could touch the ceiling, like, when you're getting thrown around, like, you get thrown over the barrier, and the band are there, like, it's, you know what I mean?
It's bananas.
And that will always stick in my mind as a memorable show that I've been to. I mean, I haven't seen them. Maybe I've seen them at a festival at some point, but that's just magic. Like, I feel like that when I look back, and I was getting a little wistful this week about this kind of thing because it's been a long time since.
Yeah, this is bumming me out.
We've got it all to look forward to. It's all coming back, and we're gonna have a lot of fun doing it.
Christ, it's fucking killing me talking about it.
I know, but you can't bottle that magic, like, especially for like kids, like when you're in your teens and stuff, and you're looking for something to commit to or kind of to get into. And you go to a show and it blows your mind like that. I mean, I got really lucky having an experience like that at the first proper rock show I went to, like, on my own, like, hooked. That's it. I was like, this will be a part of my life in some way, shape or form, forever.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like those are the moments that hook you, whether they're better or worse than a stadium show, which you've been a part of too. It's like, I just miss it.
I know. Have you got a little moment like you remember from being younger or going to a show where you're like, there's something to this?
Oh, yeah. I can remember one of my first shows. I was my first concert ever was the Rolling Stones Voodoo Lounge Tour in 1992.
That's pretty.
I know. My mom took me, and my cousin had gotten me somehow. He went, and my mom and I went. My dad was working, and it was like 10th row. At RFK Stadium. It was 100,000 people. I mean, it was fucking crazy. And I remember that being the moment being
How old are you?
I was 9.
I mean, 100,000 people is pretty intimidating for a 9-year-old, yeah? Like,
crazy. It was so scary. I mean, everyone's smoking weed and getting drunk, and you're just, like, overwhelmed. But
yeah,
the one thing I remember was the bass from the speaker system feeling it come up through your guts, and looking up at Mick Jagger and being like, that's pretty wild that every single person is just staring at that guy.
Yep.
And he's got him on the tip of his finger,
Yeah.
And they did this crazy thing. They had this giant inflatable voodoo doll and a video screen that was showing like pornography from the early 1900s, like silent film porn. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was
I know
real.
what you mean.
It was just crazy, and to hear him. To hear like the guitars are so loud, and it's just so nuts to hear like Keith Richards, and he does like da-na-na, 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 and then you hear Charlie Watts go poof,
yep,
and you're like, this is their job.
Yeah.
Like, this is what they do. That's crazy. And I actually remember that was one of the highest grossing tours ever in history. They were making $15 million a show or something. It was like, that's what they were walking with.
Yeah,
just crazy. Then two shows after that really, really, really hit me hard. One of them was just a local, very small record store in Wheaton, Maryland called Phantasmagoria, and the store was a great store, and they had vinyl records and beer. And this was way before. This was 1997. So this was before like microbrew, homebrew stuff.
Yeah, before all this stuff became cool again.
They had IPAs. They brewed their own beer. They had a little coffee bar, and they had records. And then they had a stage. And they mostly had punk bands and ska bands. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing this band, they were called like the Skankersaurs or something funny like that.
A fucking great name.
And I remember it was maybe like 50 people, and just I was a freshman in high school and just like, fuck, like this is amazing. And then in 10th grade, when I first got my car, I drove down to 930 Club to see Clutch.
Wow.
And their show was sold out, packed to the brim, line around the block, and I'll never forget being like, man, these guys are just like, they're like rock stars. Mm-hmm. And I saw people loading stuff out of their van. They were still in a van. They had a purple van and a Ryder truck, a Penske truck. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yep.
So that's kind of like when it struck me too that like, there's the Rolling Stones, and thinking about in retrospect like the massive amount of money that goes into their luxury lifestyle and the presentation on stage and the whole thing, and then being like, oh, also there's 1,000 people crammed into this club, and these guys are in a van.
Yeah.
And they don't give a shit. You know what I mean? They don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
They're like it defined to me that you could be a working class musician as opposed to like the goal being
to be a rock star.
Yeah, exactly. I think everyone falls in love with the idea of being a rock star because it's so glamorous, but I think very few people fall in love with the process of being a working class musician, which is where you actually learn anything.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's about. I don't care what anyone says. Yes, would I love to be would you love $1 million? Of course. I would never say no, don't give me $1 million for a song I wrote. That's great.
Yeah.
But also the DIY festival in Volos, Greece, Los Alamos, you don't get that experience.
No.
From like you might turn a festival like that down.
Yeah.
If your idea is like I need catering and I need a backstage area and I need this, then you're losing sight of what the whole point is. So
yeah, completely. I mean, I know somebody gave you $1 million for a song, you would still drive a little bubble camper around a fucking country.
I would. I'd be eating tuna fish out of the can like every other day.
You'd probably even be more likely to do it once you had $1 million in your back pocket. Like the struggle to get anywhere or achieve anything would be fine. I can just go and fucking play shows now. It's great.
I just think it's fun. Like the whole point. Like what else? What else are you gonna do in life? Like for me, this is it. Like I just want to have fun. I don't care. I just don't. I don't care.
What about... So I also was a little wistful about this. Like the first...
Are you holding a yellow pick?
Yeah, man.
Dunlop 73s?
I've actually got one of John Denay's signed picks, actually, from Anthrax, because just lying around.
Cool.
What about when you first started playing in bands, and you... Because I played in a lot of bands at school, and the school had a brainwave of like, right, we're going to get all the musicians and we're going to create like, they called them house bands, where like we'll try and help guide these bands. So they had 4 bands, and the first 3 were like all the kids who got music lessons and were like actually pretty good at what they did, and so they were fine. And then there was like us rejects to the side.
Yeah.
But again, we were all friends who used to go to parties and stuff together, and they all had great taste in music. So our set list was like Gentle Art of Making Enemies by like Faith No More, and we did Waiting Room by Fugazi, and we did Evil Eye by Fu Manchu, all that kind of stuff.
It's a great set list.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I remember we did a show in the school lunch hall. They turned it into like a venue for like the Friday night or whatever, and let us all play. And we tore the place down, like, because everybody else was playing really safe, middle of the road kind of classic rock stuff, and we just went out and played a load of hardcore punk and stuff, and it just rocked. And I was like, yeah, I could do this. I could definitely do this.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell you this. The first show I ever really played was my friend Dean Dean Themistocleos. We grew up together, and his parents had a very nice large house, and he went out of town, and he said, "I want you to get a band together for the party." And the word kind of got out, and a few hundred people ended up coming to his house. It was very bad. It ended very badly. The cops came, whatever. But in the basement, playing like one original song and then like a Sublime cover and maybe like a Weezer song or something like that.
Yeah, we did the Sweat song, actually.
There you go. And then we did maybe like a Black Sabbath tune. I think we did like The Wizard or something.
Mm-hmm.
And watching people freak out and have fun, and you're like, oh, you're part of this. Like, you're doing this. That was it. And then the cops came, and we hid drugs and booze in the bass drum and then packed it up, and they never looked in it, and they gave all this other people drinking citations, but we didn't get them.
So the band actually got away with it for once.
Yeah, Hank ran into the woods with his brother and slept in the woods overnight, and they never found him. And a bunch of people we know got like $500 drinking citations, and we just got let off kind of scot-free. They were like, all right, pack your stuff up and get out of here. And then I did go back the next day, and his parents came back from out of town, and I came back the next day and helped him clean, and the house was destroyed. The basement was destroyed.
You did your job.
Fights. There was fucking fights. It was just, it was so crazy. And I remember being like, all right, I think I could do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That was it.
Amazing. I'm going to try one more thing. I don't know whether this will work. Like, is there anybody that you wanted to see that you never got to or never will get to or you haven't seen yet?
No, I've made a point to pretty much do and see everything that I can. Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'm sure there is one, but...
So I saw Prince. I was lucky enough to see him, and it was brilliant.
Wow.
I saw him at an arena in Manchester. Like, I'd actually tried to go and see him when he was booked to play at Croke Park in Ireland, and like Croke Park is this massively historical place where like to do with Ireland and England and stuff. Like, there's loads of history there. So it would have been incredible to go and see Prince there, but he cancelled like a week out or something. So I just went to Ireland for a couple of days. But then, because Prince used to do all those like kind of just off the cuff shows and places and do like random gigs everywhere. So he came to Manchester before the arena shows, and he played at Manchester Academy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I think he did 2 nights, and basically you had to queue up and wait to get in.
Yeah, of course.
And I think I was away working or something, or like, so I had friends who queued up outside, waited, got in, and saw
that would have
Prince
been the one.
Played at 2,500 people in a small club room.
That would have been the one.
That would have been the one. That I might have stopped doing this if I'd seen that show. That might have been it. Like, what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah. I've never... I try to make a point when I'm in town. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's a Wednesday night. I've gone to see this Greek band that I really like called 1000 Mods. They did their first U.S. tour. There's probably 50, 100 people there. And I felt like I was part of something kind of special. I went to see Daniel... what's his name? Daniel Nor... fuck. All right, hold on. I have to look it up because Rob's going to have to edit this out.
Or he's not going to have to edit it out. That would be much better.
I know. I really want this. Oh, Daniel Norgren. Sorry, I was saying Nordstrom, which is a clothing company. Daniel Norgren came. He's a Swedish artist that, like, in Sweden plays to 10,000, 20,000 people. Okay. And he played to, like, 50, 60 people, you know? Yep. So I make a point pre-pandemic to go see shit.
Yeah. We'll have to make that same point once things get back up and running.
Oh, dude. Every night of the week I'll be out. Straight up.
Yep. I'll be there. I'll be there.
Yeah, babe.
Dude, this has been awesome. It is lovely to see you.
Great chat. Good to see you.
Great chat. Congratulations again on finally being able to tell everybody that you've signed to...
Thank you.
Do you want to give it a little... Hey, I've now...
Yeah, it's official. I've signed to Velocity Records. And a couple different... albums I can say will come out within the next year.
Cool. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah. I'm ready.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, thank you very much for your time as always, dude. I will no doubt speak to you soon. Oh, give me those eyebrows again. I like, yeah, it's hot. It's good.
All right, man.
This has been another episode of Tour Talk. Thank you very much. See you later.
Peace.
Bye. Congratulations on making it to the end of another episode of Tour Talk. You can keep up to date with us across the socials at Tour Talk Pod, so that's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon. Please subscribe, comment, like, and share, and we will see you next week.